So over the last day or so, I've seen so many different variations of Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark discussions. Now, I don't think any of this has come from any official source or, anyone with particular gravitas. No offense to those of you who have been posting about it online. I'm not trying to dish you. I'm just saying it's kind of a made up topic, I guess, is what I would say. I believe it originated from this graphic resurfacing where you're looking at the freshman of the year seasons, and by the counting numbers there, Caitlin Clark clearly had a superior season to Paige Bueckers, yet was co-freshman of the year, I think, and Paige won National Player of the Year as a freshman. Caitlin did not, obviously, if Paige won, which I don't understand how they could be co-freshman of the year and not, co-player of the year. That would be the same. But it seems like that resurfaced graphic where Paige Bueckers was the player of the year as a freshman and Caitlin Clark was not, despite Caitlin Clark having better counting stats, was the beginning of this. And here's what I'll say about it. I understand there's a natural tendency for people to find a rival for Caitlin Clark or to find someone that they can argue as better than Caitlin Clark because of all the hype that's been around Caitlin. And, people don't like that hype or whatever else that comes with it. So they want to push back and they want to stick it to Clark's fans, whatever the case may be. But here's the thing about the hype. It's based on basketball. And I feel like in this quest to do so and quickly elevate everybody else, first it was Angel Reese, obviously, and that started with this and became a whole other thing. But Reese has become a celebrity and a basketball star in her own right, but she's not as good as Caitlin Clark. And now, you hear it with Juju Watkins. You obviously hear it with Paige Bueckers. But Caitlin Clark led the entire NCAA in points and assists her final year. Then she goes into the WNBA and produces more points than anyone in the history of the league ever has before. So being as good as that is a tall task. And it's not a failure for anybody, Paige Bueckers included, if they don't live up to that. Now, Paige is hyper efficient. She's hyper efficient, but she's on the older side playing at UConn, playing against younger players, and they haven't played anyone yet. And you could make the case that Paige is better all around, I suppose, because she is really good at everything. But you could also make the case that Captain America is better all around than Hulk or Thor, but because they are so explosive at what they do, they would take him out. Paige is efficient. Caitlin is explosive. And what really separates her is her court vision, which is as good as anyone I've ever seen, man or woman. Now, that doesn't mean Paige can't go on to have an unbelievable final college year here, perhaps win the national championship. She's likely to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft, and I wouldn't put a ceiling on her. I'm not saying she can't go on to be something, but I do feel like a lot of this is anti-Clark more than it's pro-Paige at times. And, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I got no issue with it. This is not one of these things I'm going to rage against or have an issue with because this is basketball conversations, right? Like even if the motives of some are because of something else, it's still a basketball conversation where those things happen all the time. People get compared to whomever all the time. And that's all in good fun. And that's good for the game, really. Like if you are comparing more and more players to Caitlin Clark, I mean, Gino Auriemma said it yesterday, legendary coach of UConn, or he didn't say it yesterday, but the comments were spread everywhere yesterday, that it can't just be, Caitlin and Paige going forward. And he seems to feel the need to put Paige in the conversation with Caitlin at all times. And I know, there's something about Paige that people like. Obviously, people have referenced her ESPY speech, and that was kind of, I guess, what some other people wanted from Caitlin. I don't know. I'm not getting into that aspect of it. I don't think it's really relevant to this conversation. But Paige is a star. She is. She's got her own shoe. She's signed up for Unrivaled, all these things. But it ain't easy to be Caitlin Clark. And people keep acting like it's just like Caitlin Clark was some product of something that, she was made up by the media, when that's not the case. The case is the media started covering Caitlin Clark because of the interest, and it still happens. I mean, do you think Caitlin Clark shows up at Butler game? Caitlin Clark shows up at Knicks Pacers game? Caitlin Clark says something about the Chiefs are all stories because the media is trying to force Caitlin Clark down your throat? I promise you, I guarantee you, Clark probably would like less of it. Sorry, Caitlin, can't help you there. But that happens because people are interested in Caitlin Clark. And people are interested in Paige Bueckers too, don't get me wrong. She's got a certain level and a certain status and a charisma herself. But she just started this college season. She hasn't played anybody as of yet. Yeah, she was efficient in some of these games, but she's being very judicious in the shots that she takes. And, at the same time, you got to wait until she gets to faces some adversity here. When you're hyping up her over somebody who just went into the WNBA and did it. Came from college, scored more points than anyone ever has in a college career. More than anyone ever, not like, not a lot, more than anyone ever. And led the league or led the nation in points and assists. Then goes to the WNBA, leads the WNBA in assists, breaks the all-time assist record, produced more points than anybody, takes her franchise to the playoffs, averages 20-plus points a game post-Olympic break. Paige is the one who's got something to prove, not Caitlin Clark, right? So I think it's fun. It's cool. But we got to pump the brakes a little bit first. And it really does show you the power that Caitlin Clark possesses in the zeitgeist, where that's the way the Paige Bueckers conversation is being framed. And they played last year, too. And obviously Iowa got the best of that matchup. I think Diana Taurasi had picked Paige Bueckers in the midst of that matchup. But nonetheless, here we are. And I don't mind having the conversation because sports comparisons are what sports talk is about. That's the bedrock. That's the foundation. So welcome aboard, Paige Bueckers.